everyone, how are you doing? I hope you are doing well at the beginning of this new year. I'm doing okay. Weather's kind of wacky. We've been having a lot of warm days, which I'm not complaining about. But yesterday it was pretty cold yesterday, and we had snow. Today it's pretty much, most of it's gone, and like up in the 40s. Well, I don't want to sound too optimistic. It was good for me, 40 to 42, let's say. So a lot of the snow melted, and it was super sunny, but very windy. So it's kind of like one of them chilly, blustery days you get more in the fall. I'll take it. But because of that, I got me some chai tea. Oh, it's so good. So good, you guys. If you haven't tried it, you really ought to. But anyhow, I have been, I don't know, reflecting, I guess. Don't we all do a lot of that at this time of year? Reflecting on the past year or just days gone by and wondering what the future's going to hold and making plans and goals. And I guess I've just been feeling a little melancholy. Of course, I've been thinking of Paul. And the other night, New Year's Eve, I went to an event at church. It was really nice too. Is we all got together and had food, of course. It was like sloppy joes and stuff like that. So we all sat around eating and talking a little bit, and then we watched a really neat movie. I think it was called Overcomer. And it was really nice. And it was just nice getting together and catching up with everybody when it's, not a church day. But I was the odd man out, which I kind of am a lot these days. Everybody else there was a couple. And, which is fine with me, But it, this got me thinking about my other half. And I looked at all these nice people, very good, very nice people, friendly, wonderful people. But I thought about, once they left here, what were they going to do? They were going to be in the car together, chit-chatting maybe about the movie, or about some news topic they got from one of us there. And then eventually, go home, go to bed, tell each other I love you, go to sleep, get up the next morning, and without even really thinking about it, that other person is already in their mind. What their day is going to be like, what they need to do, but that person is there. And of course I don't have that anymore, and I miss that. I miss it a lot. I miss having my best friend, because really that's what married couples are. At least if you're in a good marriage, I hope. And even if you're not the best of friends, you've come to rely on that other person always being there. That person you can talk to about anything. Who knows you, who knows your habits, who knows what you think about, who knows what you feel about things, who's not going to tell somebody else if you don't want them to. Somebody whose first thought is you in the morning. Somebody who's making their plans involving you. And yeah, I really do miss that. You know, there's so many things that have gotten better in the time since Paul has passed, and it's not even been 2 years yet. It will be at the end of April. But I remember everything would remind me of him. That first year at least. It's gotten better now. Like, I was at the grocery store the other day and I saw this big display of pork rinds. I don't like pork rinds, but Paul did. He liked to eat them a lot. And I remember, especially the first 6 months, when I'd be at the grocery store, if I saw pork rinds or Frosted Flakes or stuff like, certain things like that, it would just depress me so much. I'd want to cry right there in the store, because that's what Paul liked, and that's what I would buy him and get him. And it's not as bad now. I can see them now and either not think about any of that or just smile to myself a little bit. But another thing that kind of bothers me, speaking of stores, is when holidays come up. I was at Kohl's, and I wasn't looking for anything in the guys section, but I had to go past it. I had to walk by, and I see all of these flannel shirts and sweaters and stuff like that, and just reminded me that I'll never buy him another gift. I'll never sit there going through racks of shirts trying to find the right size or the right color, and hoping he'd like it and want to wear it. And like I told you guys before, Paul was always my cheerleader. I don't have that anymore. And I miss that too. But it is really true what they say, you know, to appreciate the little things. And I did. When Paul was here, I really did. Every day, I thanked God for everything. And you know, I remember sometimes I would just stare at him and like study his face. And now I'm kind of glad I did. But I'd be so happy that I had him with me. And I think that is because Paul and I didn't get together till I was in my 30s. And I had already been in a couple of bad relationships. And at the time that I met him, I was a single mom for a few years. And during that time, I studied the Word a lot and got really close to God, and He opened my eyes to a few things. And yes, I did make not good choices in picking a life partner, but it wasn't all them. There were a lot of things about me that needed to change, and over time I started to change. And there was, let's see, 2003, okay, so in like February of 2003, my girlfriends and I went to a concert. We went to go see Trace Atkins. And we saw it at the Potawatomi Casino. Now, unless you're from Wisconsin, you probably don't know about the Potawatomi, but it's a good-sized casino, and they have a decent area for concerts. But I like going to concerts there because it's smaller. and almost every seat there is a good seat. You're close to the stage, you can see the people really well. It's not like a big stadium or anything. So I remember standing there or waiting, and I watched him walk out on stage, and oh man, I love me some Chase Atkins. And I remember thinking, God, what, I'd love to have a guy like that. And I always preferred tall and just, kind of a guy's guy kind of thing. And I remember saying to God, I said, I'm not going to be picky. I'm not going to sit there and think about, looks and all this and whatever. I'll be happy with whoever you send me, as long as they care about me and they're good to me and I can be good to them. So that was February, and I ended up meeting Paul in August. And Paul's real tall, and Trace Atkins is a little taller. And Paul can't sing like Trace at all, but he loved singing country music in particular. He'd sing a lot of stuff, but country was his favorite. That's what he knew best. And he was funny, and he took good care of me. It was just what I needed and wanted. And after that learning period of being single and by myself, I knew the importance of a good relationship, and I knew where I had to be different than where I was in the past. I wasn't always patient, wasn't always empathetic, and I knew how lucky I was to have Paul. And not just because Paul was this great guy, because he was, but because he was a good guy for me. And I had a good relationship, a great relationship. And a lot of people don't get that. And I was so grateful for that. I did a lot of things I maybe didn't want to do, or wouldn't have chosen to do because of Paul. And a lot of times it turned out good. It's a good thing I did it, but sometimes not so much. But it didn't matter because I was always with him. That's all that mattered to me, was being with Paul. Paul made me feel good about me. And I think that's the difference in good relationship and bad relationship. How does that other person make you feel about yourself? And I miss that. There's so many little things I miss. I miss talking to him. I miss bouncing ideas off of him. I miss calling him in the middle of the day. I miss hearing him say I love you, or calling me beautiful. And one other thing I remember is, how when you're a couple, you talk to each other about things you heard on the news, or ideas you have, or something you want to do. And sometimes when you're telling your significant other, it doesn't seem like they're paying a whole lot of attention, or like they care a whole lot, but they're kind and they listen to you anyways. And so yeah, of course I had times like that with Paul too. And but the crazy thing about it is oftentimes when I heard him on the phone with his family, I'd hear my name come up pretty frequently. Sandy this and Sandy that and Sandy, and I went, it made me feel so good, so like proud, because he was listening to what I had to say, and he did care, and he did think it was a good idea, or he was boasting about me with cooking or something new I did, and so that made me feel so good. And because Paul rarely even called me by my name. And the only time I really remember him saying my name is when he was talking to someone else about me. So yeah, that was really cool. And I wish I still had more days like that. But I'm not going to. And I've obviously come to grips with that. Well, it doesn't mean it still doesn't suck, because it does. You know, I often think, is it harder or somehow better depending upon the way your loved one died, how you mourn or how you deal with it? Now, you all know pretty much, you know, what happened with Paul. And if you don't really know, I'll put a link to the description where I kind of tell you. But I'm the one who found him, and it was such a shock, such a horrible shock. And I didn't want it to be real. I turned around to leave, and, you know, kind of like, if I don't see it, it's not real. And I knew he had passed away, yet all of a sudden there was this sliver of hope, you know, that I could somehow save him, and ran for help. And of course, you know how that turned out. But I remember that I wouldn't touch him. And I think that's because that would make it real. And the minute someone you love, your significant other, dies, and you know that, it's just so permanent. And you know your life, the life that you knew, was over. And a life without that person just seems unfathomable. You just can't think about it, because they're so ingrained in you. They are you. They're such a huge part of you. And, you know, when you have a spouse that dies of sickness, of cancer, or something along the lines of that, where you've watched them for quite some time suffer and deteriorate, that is so incredibly hard. It is so hard. I watched my dad go through it, because we went through it with my mom. And, you know, and I have a friend who was in a major car accident, and they made it out okay, but their spouse didn't. And, you know, these are just 3 different scenarios. There's so many different kinds. Does it matter? I think that in your own mind, individually, maybe it does matter, but as a whole, it doesn't. And what I mean to say is, like, if it's shocking or jarring, or, you know, kind of like what I went through, that could bring up, you know, I ended up getting anxiety and all this other stuff. And so with some people it might be PTSD or something along the lines of that, whereas maybe someone who was tending to their ailing spouse for months wouldn't get that, but they may end up with a whole different set of problems. And so I don't know, but I do know that I seem to have been getting through this better than I thought I would, and I think better than most of my family thought I would. And I really believe all the prayers from so many good, beautiful people like you had something to do with that. And of course, for the most part, God's mercy. It still hasn't been easy, and I don't know. I don't try to dwell or talk about it a lot, but he's always with me every single day. I'm still thinking of him every single day, and I don't know if that'll ever stop. I'm not depressed every single day. But he's just always there, and in a way that's great. You know, and I just wanted to make this video so that maybe other people in my situation could look at it and know that they're not alone, that there's other people going through this. I mean, I feel like I was kind of young to be a widow. I was 49, and but there's other ones that are quite a bit younger, and then even those that are older. It's something new for all of us, and I think we all experience at least some of it the same. And maybe it helps if you can feel that you're not alone as much. I mean, millions upon millions of people have gone through this, and more will, unfortunately. And if I could take away death, wouldn't that be wonderful? So that none of you have to experience this with your spouse, but eventually you will, or your spouse will. So, yeah, that's what's been on my mind lately. I think about him all the time. I miss him all the time. But I'm gonna keep going on because that's what I have to do. That's what I need to do. That's what God wants me to do. And as much as I love Paul and still do, God is number one. Always has been, always will be. And I remember shortly after Paul died, a few months, and I was just so depressed. And I just saying, God, I can't go on. I can't take this. I can't do this. And it was like a little voice in my head, like you know, the what would Jesus do kind of thing, but it was, would you do it for me? Like Jesus was speaking, saying, would you go on for my sake? And I was like, yeah, for you I will. For you I will. No matter how much it hurts and is painful, for you I would. So anyways, I hope this has been kind of helpful. Maybe somewhere down the road, if you're not going through this, it will give you insights as maybe a friend or family member who is going through it. And check on them and talk to them. And, you know, it's okay to talk about the spouse who's gone. It's one of the biggest things is, at least I feel like most widows are this way, where we don't want our spouses forgotten because they mattered so much to us, but they mattered to the world. We all mattered. But we don't want them forgotten, so it's okay to talk about them. Thanks for watching, you guys. I appreciate it. Take care.